All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Reed Wheeler, and today with me, I have a very cool guest. I don't remember how I met him, but he's just always been there in my mind. Today with me, I have. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, guys.
Welcome to the Honors Podcast.
My name is Elijah Foggie. I am a senior computer engineering major. So a few things I do on campus. I'm a university ambassador. Of course, I'm part of the honors program. This year, I'm the senior class vice president, so that's been pretty fun. I'm also part of Alpha Phi Omega, the service fraternity here on campus.
That's very cool. I didn't know you were part of SGA.
Yeah,
good.
I do it. Go to the Senate meetings and whatnot, plan senior class events.
Yeah,
Pretty chill.
that's very cool. How does running for vice president work?
So when you're running for VP, so when you're doing class officers, you get to run. It runs separately, and so someone hypothetically could run for vice president like on their own, but usually you do it as a team. And so what happened for me, this girl named Emma, she's also in honors in my year. She randomly called me like the semester, so it's spring semester junior year before senior year starts. She randomly called me and was like, "Hey, would you want to run for class officer with me?" And I was just like, "Sure." Like, I like new experiences. I like doing stuff. I ran when I was in high school, but I never really had like the desire, I guess, to run when I was here. But
Yeah.
since someone asked me, I was like, "Sure," you know. And so we got together a team of 5 people. One of those people we hadn't met before we started running. We actually got a message from one of our another friend in honors. His name is Riley, that someone in his fraternity was good with money, and so he could be a good treasurer for us. And so we formed together the team. We signed up. Then we had to go to meetings, and like it would determine like, hey, you could say this stuff, you can't say this stuff, you can post whatever you want, but only after a certain date when the campaign starts. And so when we started campaigning, we did a few things like events. We went to the philanthropy table outside of Slane to campaign. I created an Instagram. I usually don't have any social medias, but the president was like, "You should make an Instagram." So I just made one and posted like, "Hey, I'm running, blah blah blah."
Yeah.
And then after I won, I post a post like, "Hey, we just won. Thank you all for voting for me." One funny experience that happened with that was so the presidential voting. That one, so initially she lost by only like 20 votes or so, but we found out that one of the economic teachers, he in his class, he was like, "I'll give you extra credit if you vote for this one other student who's running because he's a business major," and so he was in the class, and so the teacher just thought that was okay. But then when we found out, it was like, actually, that's kind of tampering a little bit, and so they recounted the votes after that with just the student who won and then Emma because she lost by so little, and the amount of students in the class was more than the amount she lost by, and so that's why I was like, maybe we'll make it fair if they just recount the two of them, and then she ended up winning after that.
Dang.
So that was a pretty cool,
close.
yeah, it was a very close call, but we ended up winning in the end, so.
Yeah, our SGA is so interesting. Like, it's been very good and very cool. They're like one of the most like active student governments in the country, and like, but they like change their structure every year.
They do.
It's very
They change it a
interesting.
lot.
They're trying to like tweak it out and work it out, but it's really great experience for the students who do get to run in it. And you
Yeah.
have never done anything in SGA before?
So a few years ago, I was actually the SGA rep for, I think this was my freshman and sophomore year. I was SGA rep for a different club. It was like a mental health club. So I would go to the meetings for that club, but never sitting in a class officer position. So it's a little bit of a different experience, but I've been there before.
I wish I could be an SGA, but like I always have rehearsal on like, Thursday at 7.
I get it. It's just a busy time
Almost
for
in
that.
Yeah, it's good, but I know a lot of people in SGA and like they do good work and it's pretty cool.
There's a lot of honor students in there too.
I know.
SGA.
Good overlap right
Right.
there. Yeah, like our current executive council
almost
is
all
like,
honors.
all honors. It's very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. And like our new council for next year is like all ambassadors. Now.
Yeah, they are. I just noticed that.
There's a lot of honors overlaps in the
so
different
there's
circles.
a lot of overlap. I think the honors kids are probably some of the most active ones on the campus, and so if you get involved as well, you'll just see them everywhere. But that's a good thing.
That's what I say on tour a lot when I'm like advertising the honors programs. Like, it puts you at the like center of the network of the university. You
It
can,
really
like,
does.
access everything because you know everyone.
Because like you'll just know this person, or hey, they're the president of this club, or this other person's the president of this other thing, and
like you
they're
were
just
neighbors your freshman year.
right? Yeah, you're neighbors, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's very cool. And like Hedman always jokes about it, is like my spies. It was fun.
That's funny.
So you're part of one of our more quiet spoken about programs. Got computer engineering in School of Couch.
Yep.
Very impressive program. Very
Thank
cool
you.
major.
Yeah.
Lots of respect, but I want to learn more about it. Demystify it a little bit.
Okay. So you start, of course, with your prereqs. Like you learn all your maths, take physics, learn some coding classes. So those are kind of spread out. Like there's not engineering specific. You'll be in like class with physics students, computer science students, things like that. Then you get into the actual meat of the engineering courses after that. But one cool thing we do at our program is all of the classes come with the lab component. It's like all the engineering specific ones. So the ones that say ECE, they come with the lab component, which is not something that you'll usually see at schools because, if you're at a different engineering program, you also have like hundreds of students in your class. So there'll just be a big lecture and then you'll go home. But for ours, we have our lecture and then on one days of the week, we have a lab. And so that one, we actually get to learn all the theories and then prove it in lab. So it adds to the learning component. It adds a little bit more work with the labs and the lab reports, I'll be honest. Yeah. But it does give me an edge for sure over competition because I've been in the lab so much more time.
What do you do in a computer engineering lab? Because I can think of like biology lab. Is it like the same structure? Like you have 3 lectures?
Actually, it's pretty different. So we have our lectures. Those are usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the labs are going to be either Thursday or Tuesday. And they're 3 hours long. And so usually the professor will just give you a packet and it'll say like, build this circuit that has a certain amount of resistance. It'll have this capacitor in it, for example. And then we have these machines that measure different components of the circuit. So like voltage, measure current, measure resistance. And so you build the circuit, you measure whatever they're telling you to measure. Maybe you have to draw a plot that takes measurements at different voltages, like different inputs, things like that. So that's the meat of it. It does depend on which lab or which class you're in. So those are all the circuits type classes. We also have a class called digital logic. So with that one, some of the cool stuff that you'll do is you'll have like a few switches, like you can turn on and off, and maybe you'll have like a LED display that'll have numbers on it. And so depending on which switch you put, it'll light up certain numbers. So that's a cool lab that we have for one of our digital logic class. So you have to build that. So you have to actually design like how all the intricacies in that. It's a little bit hard to explain, but that's an example of some of the stuff we do in those type of labs. Then we have other types, which are usually higher level. This depends on whether you're electrical or computer. For us computer people, we like to we code a lot, and so we'll have these like microprocessors. I don't know if you've heard of like a Raspberry Pi or
I actually had one.
Oh, okay.
I
Gotcha.
had like a little coding era in like 7th grade.
Oh, okay, awesome. But yeah, we have Raspberry Pis or like Arduinos, and you'll code different stuff on those, and they'll be hooked up to whatever. Like they can be hooked up to LEDs. They can be hooked, you know, because you've used them, hooked up to wheels and make motors spins, stuff like that. And so those are more of the computer type labs that we have. And then we have projects, and so those are usually later in the semester, and then it takes up lab time. And so you'll have, instead of a 1 week lab that week, you'll have a 3-week lab, and it will be a project instead of a lab. And so you'll have 3 weeks to work on a project. It can be group or individual. And those are just like a bigger thing, like you're building a robot, like a tiny robot, or you're making a really big circuit, stuff like that. So those are the project aspects of it.
Do you have a big project that you've made that you're really proud of?
I do. One of them is, it's called a tuning amplifier. So this is something that you see on radio shows or even in some of the podcast equipment now. It's basically amplifies signals at different frequencies. So that's what you'd use for audio. And so let's say I want a bass boosted audio. You'll amplify the signals that are at the low frequencies because that's where all the bass tones are. And so what I did was I built an amplifying circuit. I forget the exact frequencies that I amplified, but basically it was a certain frequency range, whether it's like 2,000 to 4,000 hertz, and those sounds or those signals will be really high. And then if it's a signal that's lower or higher than that range, it'll be really low. So you wouldn't be able to hear it if it was hooked up to an audio platform. And so that's what I did. And so that's what you'd see for like FM radio. It's like frequency modulation. So that's exactly what mine is. If I hooked up like an antenna to my circuit, we would have been able to hear radio frequencies that's at that frequency that I chose, because that's literally how FM radio works, like in your car. And so we were able to build that.
It eliminates the lower frequency, so it's not like interfering with it.
Yeah, basically. Wow. And so that's, like I said, that's like in your car radio when you're turning to like 103.1 or something like that. It'll amplify the frequency that's at 101.3 or whatever is assigned to it, and all the rest will be quiet. And so that's why you only hear that radio channel.
Dang.
And so that's
how that works.
Yeah. And so that was a really cool lab that we had. One more that we built, it's called embedded systems. So that one we used in Arduino, and we made a little tiny delivery robot. And so we hooked it up we had a camera and we had a website. And so the camera would display the feed to the website, and we'd be able to control it remotely. And so we have like the arrow keys you can use to move forward, backwards, left and right. We had like wheels in the robot. So that was really cool because it was a group project. Yeah. So there was like 4 of us. We had to build not only the remote control part, like with the computer, but also the lab part with the actual robot. And it was built to deliver coffee to the teacher. And so you put coffee on top of the robot, and you can drive it to where the teacher was at that day. So that was cool.
That's very cool. You seem like you're very passionate about your program. Like,
yeah, I really enjoy it. A lot. Yeah, I really like it. I like the community aspect. That's probably my favorite part of it, because it's not like a huge engineering program. It's a little bit smaller. Like, I think my graduating class is 12 people right now, but it's been like doubling over the years. So I know.
Yeah, and y'all like just added mechanical engineering.
Yep, just added mechanical electronics. Yeah,
all that stuff.
I think right now they're at like 40 something for the freshmen. But yeah, the community aspect, because it's a smaller program, we're able to really get to know your teachers, and they're all kind of in that advisor role where if you need help, not only with engineering things, but outside help or learning about different career options for you, they're really knowledgeable on that, and they're able to help you specifically because they don't have like 100 students that they're trying to look over.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I'd say is the access to the equipment. That's something you wouldn't see at a different engineering program, but that's something that we have here. Is you're able to go into the lab whenever you want. They're open 24/7. You use the 3D printers, use the different wood cutting machines that we have, or the laser cutter, stuff like that. And that's, like I said, something you wouldn't get at a bigger school because they have such a large program. You can't really account for all those students. But here we have access whenever we want to use that stuff.
So for computer engineering specifically, or I guess electrical engineering too, since you kind of know about it, as a non-couch school person, there's kind of this like public perceptions like, dang, that's a really hard major. That's so scary. People like sacrifice their life for that. What do you say to that?
I would say,
is it as hard as people say it is?
I don't think so. Like it can be for sure. Like it definitely has its moments where you're going to be up super late at night. Usually those are like the projects. Like if you didn't delegate your time well, you're going to have to be up late at night doing the project before it's due. I wouldn't say it's as bad as people say. It depends on what skill sets you have. Like, of course, there is a lot of math, and the math is tough. But as long as you go to your teacher and get help, like, you can always pull through, you know? Like, yeah, I wouldn't say it's as hard as people say. Like, of course, it's difficult. Of course, you're going to have to put time to it, especially if math and stuff doesn't come easy to you. But I would say I have plenty of free time to do things. Like, I joined a bunch of clubs, as I was saying earlier, joined a bunch of organizations, and I still got good grades. Like, it's not something that you would really have to sacrifice a ton of your time for. But you definitely do need to know where your strengths are best at. I do think anybody could do it, but some people would need more help than others. And it's just a matter of going to get that help and putting in more time if you need to put in more time. If you don't, like I know some students who, they don't have to put in a super ton of outside work effort and they still get good grades. And I know some students who spend most of their time doing engineering work and they get spectacular grades. So there's a range, but I'd say it depends on what your skill set lies in, your passion as well. Like, you do need to be passionate about this stuff to continue it. Like, if it's something that you're not going to want to be doing or spending a lot of your time with, I don't think it's for you because of the time commitment sometimes that you're gonna have to put into it, and having a passion for it can help you get through those times, I would say.
What is your passion for and like what you want to do with your major?
So I just like creating stuff. When I was picking my major, I came up with 3 things that I wanted in a career. I knew I wanted to help people. I wanted to create things because I like being creative, and then I knew I wanted to work as a team because I liked collaborating. And engineering kind of fit all those, and plus an interest that I had, which was in technology. And yeah, so I tried it. I didn't realize that I really loved it until we got to outside of those like prerequisite classes. I took this class called Digital Logic, which is now something that you take as a freshman. When I was a freshman, you actually took it sophomore year, but now it's something that you take as a freshman. But you really get into the lab. That's the class where we built that LED thing I was talking about, where you turn all the different switches and it lights up. I realized that I had a big passion for it, and so I just stuck with it. So it worked.
That's good. And then enhancing our lens a little bit, more big world. What's the future with computer engineering? Because like it's kind of very mainstream with like AI and all this stuff, and like this is a high demand industry, all this stuff. So what are your thoughts on the skill sets we're going to be needing in the future as a society?
I do think that there's definitely still going to be a world for computer engineers, obviously, because what we mainly do is we work with microchips and microcontrollers. So the things that you see almost everywhere nowadays, like computers, you'll see them in phones. You'll even see them in like these high-tech toasters that they have. I saw one time, or you'll see them in cars. So they're pretty much everywhere, those microchips. And so what we do is we build those and we code those. That's like the main thing a computer engineer is for. But you can always branch out because you have the skill sets to be like a software engineer. Or I'm looking into going to a master's school. I want to do a master's in AI, but I'm not sure where I'll end up at. I applied to a few of those, but yeah, I definitely think AI is going to be helping a lot because so I'm also part of this program called Community Investors, which is something that's held by our Career and Professional Development Center that you apply for. And so we go around to different companies in the local High Point area and just learn about them. I went to this healthcare company. It was Wake Forest Baptist, Atrium Health, and they even talked about AI there. They talked about how it's helping doctors so much. Like they can just press record on their phone and then help the patient without having to go back and write down a report about the visit. And so AI will record what they're doing and then create the report on its own. So they'll just have to tweak a few things. Just little stuff like that. It makes life very efficient. And so I think that's where like more of everything is going. Like I think everything's going to be so much more efficient than it was before. I'm hoping that people in my ideal world, I'm hoping people have less time that they have to put in for actual like tedious work because AI can do all the tedious stuff for us now. So maybe instead of 8-hour work days, it could be like 5-hour work days because we don't have that tedious factor. We can just have AI or robots do the tedious work for us. Hopefully everyone can still get paid the same, just work a little bit less. So that's like in my ideal world, that's where the world is going. Robots do a lot more stuff. They do all the tedious things for us, and we have to work less. So people aren't spending all their time at the office or all their time at work. They can spend more time with friends or even growing as a person. Just trying different hobbies that just have more people will have more free time in general. I think that's where the world's going, honestly.
Where do you think on like the humanity side, how we would change our values? Like what would we aspire to? Because here it's very much like a work culture. It's like aspire to get a career and a job, especially in America. So like if we only have to work 5 hours a day, what does our passion pursuits become?
I think it more closely aligns with how some people view college. I know this is like, especially with the honors program. I know it's like very weird that I'm bringing it back to honors, but with the honors program, it's all about expanding as a person, trying new things, doing new stuff. Like you said, you had an urge to do physics, and the honors side of you encouraged you to do other stuff aside from just theater. I think that's where where did you see values that would go more towards instead of being a workaholic? It would be, how can you be a better person? What kind of stuff do you do? Do you have really cool hobbies? Do you know how to do things like, I don't know, play the guitar? Do you know how to knit? Just random stuff like that. and how experiences kind of shaped you and build you into a more well-rounded person. I think that's where the world could go if everybody had a little bit more free time to just pursue things and do hobbies, and instead of having their mind occupied all the time with work, their mind could do other stuff. They could think, they can get more creative. I can figure out like, hey, how do I view this part of life? What is the meaning of what I'm doing right now? They just have a little bit more time to think, a little bit more time to themselves. I think that's where the value is going to go. I want to say that's how it was like way back when people valued like, I think they're called aristocrats, where they valued the arts a lot, like philosophers, theater people, people writing poems and stuff, things like that. That was a little bit more of that era because they had a little bit more free time, and they just got creative and made stuff and just got to think all day, stuff like that.
I learned something really interesting about like that era you're talking about. In Britain, people slept twice a day.
Really?
There's a thing called biphasic sleep. So like today we like go to bed at like around 10 a.m.
Yeah.
and wake up at like 7 or 8. Like our ancient like sleep pattern was like you sleep for a little bit in the evening, you like wake up around like the wee hours of like 2 or 3 for a couple hours, and then you sleep more.
Oh wow.
So there's a whole culture of like people waking up at like 2 a.m, going out with their friends in like London downtown and like, you know, chatting, doing all the things, writing poems and all this stuff, and then they go back to bed.
Wow. That
It's
sounds
like,
really
they just
cool.
have that much time.
Yeah,
and
they just
all
have a
this
lot
stuff.
more free time. Yeah, stuff like that. Like you can't imagine people like nowadays taking like 2 naps a day or being able to just break up their sleep like that. But it's something you were able to do because you had a lot more free time back then. And I'm hoping the world can get back to that eventually with the use of AI and robots. Like I know everyone's been worried about it taking their jobs and stuff like that, but I think it's just a big time saver, honestly.
Yeah.
Like instead of me having to do this tedious work, I have AI to do it, or just stuff like
I
that.
definitely appreciate that. And you have like the classic example we're all conditioned to of like you don't really have to worry about punctuation in your essay as much because like you can just get it to autocorrect it all for you.
Exactly.
That's like tedious work, so you can just think about the ideas and the argument you're making.
Yeah, exactly. You have more time to focus on the stuff that matters a little bit more.
And and we don't think that's like ethically wrong or anything.
Yeah.
It's like, use autocorrect. It's like,
Right.
it's the best.
Exactly.
That is so cool. So, kind of talked about science, technology, all that fun stuff. You're from Florida, right?
So I'm originally from Philly, but we just moved to Florida this
okay.
past
So you
summer.
grew up in Philly?
Yes, I grew up in Philly.
What was that like? What was your growing up experience? What were you influenced by?
So-
Nature, school?
Yeah, so when I moved outside of, so I was born in Philly. We stayed there for 3 years, but the schools like right outside of Philly in the suburbs were better. And so we moved out there and went to school out there. It was pretty good. Of course, it was the weather would get really cold, but also during the summer it'd get pretty hot. And so I did like that aspect of having the seasons. I appreciate that.
Do they have a good fall in Philly with like the leaves?
Yeah, they would have a good fall. Like all the leaves be like different colors,
Yeah.
red and yellow and stuff like that. It was cool. I would say I liked it because, especially during high school, one aspect is in that area there's a lot of different colleges like Drexel, Temple, UPenn, stuff like that. There's a lot of good ones, and so I would go on a lot of college visits around just for field trips. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. In high school, we had this thing called PBL, which is project-based learning, and that's something you were able to sign up for. It would take up English, science, and history. And so instead of those being 3 separate classes, it was all one big cohort, and we would just do different stuff that's instead of taking tests and all that, we were focused on building projects. And so, like, one of the cool things for a science project, we actually built boats. Like, we had three different groups. We all built like a boat, and then once we were all done, we went to the pool and like tested out our boats, like their buoyancy and stuff, like how they floated.
Like
we
life-size
had like a
boats,
race,
or
yeah,
like
like life-size
how you
boats
got
that you
in?
could get in, yeah, Another cool project that we did, so there's this, it's called Curtis Arboretum. There's an arboretum that's near the school, and it's a little bit like less taken care of than it was before. Like it would have an arboretum is a thing that has a bunch of different trees in it, and they'll all be labeled like the different types of trees that are there. But there weren't labels on a lot of them, we noticed, and so we all basically had to come up with a project that could help the arboretum out, and we actually got to work with the people that run the arboretum to like see what ideas they wanted. They approved our ideas. So some people like made benches. Some people, like my group, we made signs for the trees. I think one people made like a playground thing. You had a lot of different options, but I like the freedom that brought me, project-based learning. And it also had that community aspect that I was talking about earlier that I got through engineering, where we're all in this together. We're not really competing with each other. The teachers are more the advisor role. I found that really helpful going through high school and going through school. But I liked it. Like I appreciated being back there. I'm happy about living in Florida though, because I like it a little bit more and just ready for something new because I lived in Philly my whole life. But yeah, I'd say it was a very solid experience living up there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I grew up in the same house my whole life. So like going to college, I was like, I'm not going to college in this state. I'm from Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So neighbor Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many Floridian tourists who
There
like
really
come
are.
to my neighborhood for like summer season because it's cooler.
Oh, okay.
And like Floridians cannot drive to save their life.
No, they
Especially
can't.
where I live in like the mountainous area.
Can't try.
Like, get out of the way. But all that stuff. So that's really great. What was my question? Oh yeah, that sounds very familiar, very honors-esque, combining all those different subjects.
Yeah.
So it seems like you had a good pre-college touring experience down in Philly. How did you hear about High Point and then eventually end up coming here?
They just gave me so many like letters and emails. Like
Yeah.
they had a really good
Good
they're-
marketing.
Yeah, good marketing through admissions, and that's how I heard about them. And so I actually I applied to like 50 different schools. I'll be honest, because the only reason was because I had so many application fee waivers,
Yeah.
and so I was like, if I had to pay for these, I wouldn't apply to all those. But because it's free, it's like I might as well just apply to them.
Yeah.
And so that's why it added up really quickly. I only had to pay. I paid for like 3 of them on my own, like 3 application fees, but the rest of them were all free. And so I was like, I might as well apply because I don't like wasting stuff. I would say so.
Yes,
if it's
yeah,
just
something
free,
right.
I might as well do it. But High Point ended up standing out because I knew I wanted a computer engineering major. I also knew I wanted not like a huge state school with like 10,000, 20,000 students. And usually engineering programs aren't at the smaller schools because it costs a lot of money to have those. But High Point is like one of the only ones that I saw that's a smaller school that has an engineering program and has a built-up engineering program. Yeah, that's something that's very unique about us. And so that was like the biggest decision part. Of course, my parents love the school. Like this was their top choice, and so
Yeah.
that's why it always helps if your parents love the school too. And then, lastly, I knew I wanted really nice dorms. Like I'd heard too many college stories about the dorms being terrible, or like when I was on those tours, I would see the dorms. I was like, this is not it. Like I don't want to live here for 4 years. But this place had really nice dorms. I actually did not tour High Point before I came here. The first time I stepped foot on campus was for Summer Advantage, which is like right before you go to freshman year of college. And I was amazed by the campus. Like I'd seen pictures of it, but pictures don't do it justice at all. Like
Yeah.
I was surprised how different it looked when I was in person, like how much better. Like I was like, whoa, this is like crazy. Even like usually pictures look better than the actual thing, but I
Yeah.
was like, it was the opposite for this. Like pictures looked like good, but I knew a lot of colleges looked good, but when I got here, I was like, whoa, like I was completely taken aback.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they had a good scholarship offer too, but those are probably the main reasons why I ended up coming here.
Okay, so you came to that great engineering program, small
Mm-hmm.
school vibe, looks beautiful. And then there's the honors program, which you're obviously in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did that chapter happen?
I would say that's also a big part of why I came here. Like, I knew if I went to bigger schools, I didn't want to be just the number that's there. I didn't want to be a part of something that could like make a big impact on the school. And so that was another criteria I had. I was like, I have to be in like some sort of honors program or some sort of fellowship if I am to go to a school. And so this school had a good honors program, and I got into it. And so I'd say that was another big reason why I wanted to come here. And they had the living learning community. And so we did those. Do you remember those video calls that you would do before you got to here with some of the older honor students, and they would just be talking about their experiences here? Hedman was
No,
on
we
them
didn't
too.
do that.
Oh, really?
I was
Okay.
talking about this with the other guests, and I was like, what is this? Like, we didn't have any
Oh,
video
okay.
call with Dr. Hedman or anything.
Interesting.
We got like that summer email, and
Mm.
then the week before was like, you have an assignment. Write a paper.
Wow,
like the week
shots.
before classes even started. And we were all like, oh!
That's funny. Maybe Hedman will bring it back these next few years.
Because it was like a COVID thing, I think.
Okay.
It They're
makes
like,
sense.
we're not going to be able to see you when you get here, so it's like video chat.
Yeah.
But I still feel like it's a good idea.
Yeah, so I got
Yeah.
to speak with some of the older honor students, and then that made me fall in love with it even more. Like, they told me about different things that they've done. Like, in one of the groups, they said they built a fort in the Finch lobby. And I thought that was, like, the coolest thing ever. When I was about to come here, I was like, wow, you're able to do that and, like, really know all your neighbors and stuff. So, yeah, that was another good aspect of the admissions process, being in honors. Looking at some of the classes that they had, like I saw they had a class called Here Be Dragons. I was like, "What is that? That seems cool." I love dragons, even though it's not about dragons. But the fact that the class is named that it tells you all you need to know. It's like this is like something that's really cool. So.
Yeah, whenever people start asking me about classes, I'm like, so this is what it's called, but it's not what it means. It's just a lot to explain, but I do love it a very lot. And an interesting thing about our honors program is freshman year you take this humanistic inquiry class with Dr. Hedman, and that's kind of like our own mini version of the President's Seminar, where like all the honors freshmen get together and you just get your like specialized life skills from Dr. Hedman and just chat.
Yep.
So, what was your first impression of Dr. Hedman, first of all, and then?
Let's see. I thought he was. I think one of the first impressions I had, he played some YouTube video. I forget which one it was, but the earliest I remember was he played this like cool jazz song that I still listen to this day. He just had it playing, and then on screen they were playing all these different instruments, making these random sounds, but it all sounded really good together. And he was just jamming to that, and I was like, wow, I really vibe with this. And we also did like the honors kickball that was in colloquium that we had.
Yeah.
I think those were like probably my earliest memories of being with him and being with Dr. Hedman. I thought he was a really fun guy, and I was happy that he was like the head of the honors program. I didn't have him for a class until I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 weeks later, because until I got to his section. So that's when I really got to know him a lot better, learn about him as a teacher. Now I've had like 2 or 3 classes with him throughout my college, 3 or 4 maybe. But yeah, colloquium was one of the best parts, especially of freshman year. Just all of us getting together, doing something fun.
Yeah,
maybe
and weren't the
listening.
challenges cool?
Yeah, the challenges. Yeah, like
fun.
that. I still remember one of them was to get a selfie with your teacher. I think it was, or like talk to one of your teachers, and so that made me branch out a little bit. Yeah. I talked to my physics professor actually.
Yeah, I actually have the photo.
Oh, really?
You want to see it?
Yeah, I do. I got to speak to my physics professor, and
you met with Dr. Hendricks.
Yes, Dr. Hendricks.
And you wrote, she has been in the Army and has dived out of helicopters / planes and stuff many times. Very cool person. And she took a selfie with me. So then here's the selfie. Wait, that's your library one. Here's your selfie you took.
Wow, yeah, from freshman year, I remember that.
Look at you.
But yeah, just challenges like that got me to expand a lot more and do things that I've always liked to talk to my teachers, but taking selfies with them is a whole different level. And getting to learn about her and all the professors, that was really fun.
I know, it's a really good class. It really just helped you get into college and like branch out immediately, because it's good to like really spread out as much as you can your freshman year, and then you can like cut stuff off if you need to later.
Yeah, highly recommend doing that. It's like you said, like I joined so many stuff freshman year and just did so much, and then kind of cut it down as I figured out what I liked, what I didn't like throughout college.
Yeah, that's very good. So, kind of philosophically, what do you think about grades as a concept?
So I do think there is some value in it, like some value in grades, but I think the way that it's gone about now is not the best. Like, I've always been an advocate of, if you're trying in class and you're doing stuff, you should be getting a grade. Like, you shouldn't have it. So, because grades can be so penalizing nowadays, because you need to have like a higher GPA or to get into this specific program that you want to do, or to keep whatever scholarship that you have. And I think sometimes they're a little bit harsh on the grades, how they are now. There's definitely a balance that's needed to be found between having them but not having them so hard to obtain and get in the way of your learning. Because a lot of the times, like, I want to just pay attention in class and really think about the stuff that we're learning, but I have to spend my time taking notes down, so I'm not really thinking about what's going on, because I'm going to forget what we did. That's something Hedman does in his classes, actually, to where you don't have to take notes, because we'll have like one or two students taking notes for the day, and you're able to go back to those later. I really like that aspect, and things like that. I was actually thinking about that earlier, like grades as a whole. I've had some classes where teachers really chill about the grade, and so I've been able to really like branch out. Like, let's say we have a project and he leaves it a little bit more open ended. I'm able to experiment a little bit with that. Like, instead of writing this big essay, I'll make like a collage or something and really get creative with it.
Yeah.
But as opposed to if a grade was really like hard to obtain, I would just take the easy route and just make an essay that I know I can make really good instead of experimenting with this other thing. So I think if that with that aspect as well, that grades can be a little bit harmful. And then lastly, they stress people out a lot. Like, school should be a place where you're learning and having fun, not being stressed about whether the teacher's gonna grade you well or not.
Yeah.
And not all of it's fair. Like, I know a lot of teachers try to make their grades very fair, and some of them do a good job at it. But a lot of the times, it's like I'd say it's a little bit more subjective, especially when you're outside of a subject like math, where it's like a right or wrong answer. Some people, like I've heard people take classes with politics, and their teacher views something a little bit different than they do, and so they gave them a worse grade, even though like this is like a completely subjective type of topic, you know. So I think with that aspect, grades can be a little bit harmful too.
Yeah.
So
Something I was thinking about the other day, because I was talking to someone about this, especially in college, it's like, how do we hold students accountable? Because there's kind of like a culture, like, we have your phone, you have your computer out, we might be looking at the assignment, but
Yeah.
you don't know. We could be shopping or watching Netflix, which people do.
yeah, of course.
So it's like, whose responsibility is it to learn? Like, I kind of think it's like, we're all young adults at this point. So at the college level, at least, like, it's your choice whether or not you're going to actually learn or pay attention. But then it's like, no, the teacher has to implement grades to like punish them for not quote unquote paying attention.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, like I said, a balance, because you're right, grades are a good way to keep people in check, making sure they're not off doing just whatever. So I think there is definitely a place for grades. Maybe just different aspects of class. Like, I know a lot of people hate tests, but sometimes tests are a good way to like just assess that you know your stuff or that you're doing well. Maybe having like a graded portion of that test that makes sure that you know your stuff, but also for different assignments where you're allowed to get a little bit more creative, a little bit more freedom, you're able to get the teacher will be a little bit more lax with the grades as opposed to how they are now, where it's like, well, I guess it depends on the teacher, but where everything's very strict. So yeah, like I said, there's definitely a balance. I don't really know where that balance is, what
think
that
anyone
balance
does.
is. Yeah, but I think there is a place for them, but they shouldn't be as hammered in as they are currently. Because like I was looking at this thing, it was saying how classrooms haven't changed in like 100 years maybe, or 50
Yeah.
years, I don't know, and how the world's evolving, but classrooms aren't. And I think stuff should always be evolving. And so, like, I know the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but I feel like in some aspects we could have definitely evolved the classroom. Like I said, I don't know where that is yet. I have to think about it, but there should be some sort of change. Like, we should be experimenting and trying new stuff as opposed to staying stagnant with what.
Yeah, that was something I was talking with. I took an honors class last semester, digital media and critical analysis, with Dr. Trammell. He's awesome, but we got into a conversation because you know how like 3600s are like 40 to 60% taught by students. So like every week a student's like giving a
Yeah.
presentation or something. We got into a really big discussion one time about like, why are we still giving presentations? It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of what you're saying, evolving the classroom, like just having that 2D digital plane.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us were like, it's so nice outside. Can we have class outside? It's like, no, we have to have a
We have to have a
presentation.
presentation instead.
So we were talking about the limitations of technology in that sense, and like how we structure classes around the media we have to present.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
I think it's just something that we have to spend time thinking about. You know, maybe in the future when we have a little bit more free time, we're able to think about what we want out of our students, go back to the roots of like what the goals are for school, how we want people to take, what we want people to take out of it, and really think about what the best way to implement is for how we want to achieve our goals, basically. And so just more people thinking about it instead of staying with how it is now and trying to evolve something, trying new stuff, maybe being a little bit less strict on the teachers. I know admin can be a little bit harsh, or with high schools, middle schools, they have a lot of restrictions and standards like they have to meet. And so maybe being a little bit more lax with the teachers can allow them to experiment more, see what works, see what doesn't work. So I think it's it's a totality thing. It's not just all on teachers or not just all on students.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's very much what the honors program does. We just think a lot
Yeah, and
about stuff.
honors has been definitely some of the most experimenting that I've seen in the class. Like it's different and it's a good thing. Like a lot of the stuff sticks with me. A lot of the stuff works.
Yeah.
Like you said, the giving presentations. I've never seen that before. Like the honors students teaching most of the subjects and learning it, and then teaching their students as opposed to the teacher doing it. I think that was a cool thing to experiment with. One thing I've had in the Hedman class is like we'll have weekly quizzes, but the grade that you get won't count unless a certain number of students gets like a failing grade for a few weeks in a row. But then it's just more of like trusting you to read the material and trusting you to know your stuff as
Did he ever
opposed
tell you the story about how people failed them on purpose so they would get a graded assignment?
Oh wait, he hasn't told me that.
It wasn't an honors class, he told me. And it was like that same structure, but all their other assignments they were doing really bad on, so they needed a
so they
grade
needed
to like
a
boost
booster.
it. So they failed their weekly quizzes on purpose just so they would get them graded to up their
Start
grade a
boosting
little
the
bit.
grade. That's funny.
And he was like, they twisted the system against me.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty innovative. I think
Yeah,
that's cool
that's
though
pretty
that they all banded together and did that.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, that's pretty good conversation. Thanks for coming with me. I do have one last question for you, which is not my question. So I have a tradition on the podcast where the previous guest has left you a question to answer, and then you'll have an opportunity to leave a question for the next guest. So the last guest wants to ask you, what was your lowest moment of college and best moment at college?
Lowest moment in college. I would say, so I was really struggling. This was sophomore year. I was really struggling with this linear algebra class. And like I just didn't have as much time because I was doing a lot of different extracurriculars, and the teacher was really harsh. Like he was a really tough teacher. Like he'd have these homework assignments that take forever to do. The quizzes would be super tough, and so I was just really struggling with that. And then I was in a tutoring session and I completed this problem. I was really happy about it, but then I realized, oh, I have to like make a whole proof for it and like do this other stuff. And I was like, then I just sat back and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, it was an elective course. It wasn't like required of me or anything like that. And I was like, is this really what I want to be spending my time with? Like, I just like, I was so upset that I sat back and reflected. I was like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? I don't really want to be doing this. Like, this isn't contributing to my engineering at all. This isn't constructing. Like, I just thought it would be a fun class, and it's just not a fun class. And so I'd say it's one of the lowest, like, it's a low moment, but because of how I was feeling, it was low. But I think it had a good outcome because I ended up just dropping the course after that because I was just like, I don't need to be in this course. And because of that reflection I had, because I was so frustrated, I ended up dropping it. I'd say that was a pretty low moment. And one of the best moments, let's see, I have a few experiences that I had written down. So
Oh, you have notes.
Yeah, I took notes for this.
That's good to know your like best experiences.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of times I just forget like the stuff I've done.
I
So
agree. That's
had
why I
to,
like journaling, and
Yeah.
that's something my mom got me on, and I really
journal.
like
Yeah,
doing
it's
that.
it's important.
Like you don't have to do it every day. Just like when something important happens, you should write it
Exactly.
down.
Yeah. I'd say one of my favorite moments was, so this was freshman year again. I was out with my roommate and my friend. His name was AJ. And AJ was just like, let's just go on a drive. And so we just drove somewhere and we, like, it was just the moment, like the time of us just being there, like we were all in the present moment. That was really impactful for me. Like I just loved it so much. Like we were driving down, I saw like this country aspect. Like it looked like a real country part of North Carolina that we were in. We weren't even that far away from here. Like my sense of direction was off. Like I didn't know exactly where I was looking at my phone or anything like that. We ended up at the Thomasville Emporium. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I think it's like 20 minutes away from here. But that was like, I don't know why that was such like a magical experience for me because we walk into the store, it's like a bunch of antique clothes that's there. And so we're looking through those, just like having a good time. I looked outside, there was like a huge train passing. There was like a train track that was right outside of the Emporium, like right across the street from it. That was really cool to look at. We walked through this Emporium, we see a bunch of random knickknacks. There was a cool You know those if you're at a furniture place, they'll have a room set up that's like a room in a house. This room was like a diner. If you've seen a diner before, it's like a retro diner looking type of thing that we saw. I love diners, so that was a cool experience. I also love trains, so that was fun to see that there. And then at the end of the Emporium, like right outside, right next to the street, there was like an ice cream place, and so we got ice cream then. So just that experience in total, like I know it's just a bunch of like random amalgamations of stuff, but being in the moment and spending time with my friend and just like experiencing something new, that's like one of my top things about college is just trying new stuff. And so I really like that moment. I don't know why, but it was cool.
I think that's very telling about human nature.
Yeah, like we weren't achieving anything. We were just there in free time, and that was one of my just being present. That was one of my favorite college moments. So.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
All right. Well, to wrap up the podcast, I'm gonna hand you this notebook. Mm-hmm. Ignore all that other stuff and just write it down here. You kind of see some examples. You can write whatever you want.
Okay.
Leave a question for the next guest. You don't have to say it out loud or anything. Okay. This is my cliffhanger to make sure people keep listening.
Gotcha.
And then choose your color.
I do have some.